Welcome back to the Contractor's Compass YouTube channel. I know it's been a while, guys, but I promise I'm back. You'll be seeing more videos from me. Today we are taking a second look at multi-tool blades. So we have several different multi-tool blades from different manufacturers, including both carbide and non-carbide variants. Today we have Milwaukee, Diablo, Ezarc, Fein, Bosch, and Dremel. And I'm really excited to see how each of these blades performs. I decided that the cheaper blades from both Harbor Freight and Walmart weren't really worth testing again, as they performed so poorly compared to the other ones. There's a variety of costs in blades today, from about $3 a blade all the way up to $25 a blade. So it'll be interesting to see how they stack up against each other. Some of these blades were only available in multi-packs, like the Milwaukee and the Diablo and some others at my local stores. I'm sure you can find them by themselves, but at my local stores I was only able to get multi-packs, so I kind of had to gauge price based on single packs of each blade. However, buying a single pack of each blade is often the most expensive way to buy a blade, so that's just something to keep in mind. All of the blades that are being tested today are between 1 inch and 1 1/4 inch multi-material blades. So, starting off with the Milwaukee, we have the standard Milwaukee titanium blade, which claims 15 times longer life. And if you were to buy this blade by itself, it would be $17.97. Next to it, you have the Milwaukee carbide tooth blade, which is claimed to have 50 times longer life than the standard titanium blade, and comes in right around $19.97, so $2 more than the standard titanium blade, Milwaukee. Next up, you have the most expensive blade in the test today, which is this nitrous carbide Milwaukee blade. And this blade runs right around $25. Next up, we have the Diablo standard blade. This one has a curved edge, which I don't know how much of a difference that will make, but that's an interesting feature that it has. It is claiming 5 times life based on the standard blade. This blade runs right around $17.97 as well. Then we have the Diablo carbide blade, general purpose again, and this blade is $19.97. So you'll notice that the Milwaukee and Diablo are very closely priced in their offerings. Next up we have Ezarc, which was recommended by Darren Henderson 7076. These blades were only $3 a piece, which is much cheaper than the other blades that we are testing today. So it'll be really interesting to see how they perform. I've used these a little bit before, and they've lasted pretty well, so it'll be interesting to see how they stack up against these other ones. Next up, we have the Fein metal blade, though you do see a little multi-material wood with nails symbol right there. This blade costs $17.50 each, and I added Fein to the mix because they were one of the original makers of the multi-tool, so I thought it'd be interesting to see how they make a blade. Next up, we have the Bosch blades, which were recommended by a viewer, Reasonable Assumption. So we have the standard Bosch blade here, which is claiming 15 times life. This blade costs $18.99. Next to it, we have the Bosch carbide blades, which were slightly cheaper. I could only find them as a 2-pack, so these were $17.50 each, and they're claiming 30 times life over a standard blade. Finally, recommended by Jukio02 are these Dremel carbide blades. These are for multi-materials, cut everything again, and these were right around $17.97 a piece. Looking at all the different costs of these blades, it seems like a standard blade runs right around $18 for any of these well-known brands, without the Ezarc blade. So it'll be really interesting to see who's the best, as they're all at a pretty similar price point. So here's our test setup for today. We'll be using this for all the tests. We have a Fein Multi-Master that has been put in a 3D printed holder that slides up and down this aluminum I-beam with a nice 3D printed base. This is a big improvement from the original test setup that I had. I recently purchased a 3D printer, which allowed me to make this more advanced testing rig. Just like in the last multi-tool blade test, we will be doing 3 different tests. First, we will be cutting through a piece of pine 2x4 that's been cut down to 1 by 1.5 inches. Next, we'll be cutting through some oak. We have a nice piece of oak here, red oak, that is 7/8 by 1.5 inches. The final test is the same piece of 2x4 with 3 number 10 joist hanger nails in it. First up, we have the Milwaukee titanium blade cutting through pine. Let's see how it does. Now we have the Milwaukee carbide with just plain 2x4. Let's see how it does. Now we have the Milwaukee nitrous carbide versus plain 2x4. Now we have the standard Diablo blade versus the plain wood. Let's see how it does. Alrighty, here we go with just Ezarc on the plain 2x4. Next up, we have the Fein blade versus the plain 2x4. The Fein blade got stuck because it is not deep enough to be able to get all the way through this piece of 2x4. I feel like that kind of disqualifies it from the rest of these tests because we'll not be able to cut through the same distance as the rest of them, which is too bad because I was really looking forward to seeing how it performs. Alright, next up we've got the Bosch versus the plain 2x4. Let's see how it does. Next up we have the Bosch carbide versus the plain 2x4. Let's see how it does. It looks like the Bosch carbide had a similar problem to the Fein, where not being able to get completely through. However, with the carbide, you can see it's really 99.99% of the way there. So I think I will leave it in the testing. Alright, now we have the Diablo carbide versus standard wood. Let's see how it does. It looks like similar to the Bosch. It is almost there, but not quite. As you can see, there's the tiniest little bit left there. I guess we'll run it and see how it performs. Alrighty, so here is the Dremel blade versus the 2x4. Let's see how it does. Looking at the plain 2x4 test, the Diablo is in first place with 5 seconds, and the Dremel is in last place with 19 seconds. In second, third, and fourth place are all Milwaukee products, followed by the Bosch. This shows that, like the last video, the Milwaukee and the Diablo are still the fastest blades cutting through plain 2x4. Here is the Milwaukee titanium going through oak. Now we have the standard Diablo blade versus the oak. Let's see how it does. Alrighty, now we have the Bosch carbide versus the oak. Let's see how it does. This is the nitrous carbide versus the oak. Let's see how it does. Now we have the Milwaukee carbide versus the oak. Finally, we have the Bosch versus the oak. Let's see how it does. Alright, here is the Dremel versus oak. Let's see how it does. Next up, we have the Ezarc versus the oak. Let's see how it does. Here we have the Diablo carbide versus the oak wood. Let's see how it does. Not too much change between the standard 2x4 test and the oak test. Mostly the rankings are consistent with each other. The noticeable differences is that Ezarc took almost 40 seconds and smoked a lot to complete it. And the Milwaukee nitrous was slightly slower than the Bosch blade. Finally, we have the standard Diablo blade versus the wood with nails. Let's see how it does. Here is the Milwaukee titanium with wood with nails. Let's see how it does. We have the Diablo carbide versus the wood with nails. Let's see how it does. Alrighty, here's the Bosch carbide versus the wood with nails. Let's see how it does. Now we have the Milwaukee carbide with wood with nails. Let's see how it does. Now we have the Bosch versus wood with nails. Let's see how it does. Alrighty, here's the Dremel versus the wood with nails. Let's see how it does. Now we have the Ezarc versus wood with nails. Let's see how it does. Now we have the nitrous carbide Milwaukee blade versus the wood with nails. Let's see how it does. The winners of the wood with nails test is the Milwaukee carbide and the Diablo blade with times of 9 and 10 seconds respectively. First of all, I know it's partially my fault, but I don't understand why the Fein especially, but also the Diablo carbide and Bosch carbide have to be 1.5 inch long blades as compared to the regular versions, which are 1 3/4 inches, which is a much better length for getting through 2x4s. I feel like that's a pretty standard length in most applications, and it should really be able to get through a 2x4. I know, but that's still partially my fault for how I designed the test. My next thought is this Ezarc, however you say it, Ezarc blade really disappointed me. It smoked horribly compared to the other blades and was much slower just by comparison. I don't personally think it's worth it to cheap out on blades. That's kind of why I stopped looking at the Hercules and other Harbor Freight blade options. I just don't know. I was just very disappointed in this blade's performance overall. Another interesting trend that I noticed looking at these blades was that most of the blades that are carbide are right around 1 millimeter thick, whereas the non-carbide ones are around 0.6 millimeters thick. This is almost twice the thickness, which makes sense that they'd cut a little slower. If I was to venture a guess on why that is I would guess that the carbide is difficult to get thinner than 1 millimeter. So most of these blades are right around 1 millimeter in thickness. This definitely slowed down the blades remarkably compared to the non-carbide counterparts. After doing another round of testing of bimetal multi-tool blades, the Diablo standard blade is still my favorite blade of the bunch. It is right around the cost of all the other name brand blades and consistently outperforms the rest of them. You can also find them on sale for around $9, so that's usually what I do when I need a new blade. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate all your support. Leave any thoughts or comments down below, and I'll see you next time on the Contractor's Compass YouTube channel.